All right, we are back on a Young Turks. Look, one of the things we talk about often on this show is how much money is taken over politics. Do you know that if you run for Congress, the guy with more money on the House side wins 93% of the time? On the Senate side, it's 94% of the time. So money controls our politics, and now because of Citizens United and earlier Supreme Court decisions, basically that's been put on steroids, and there is money flowing in to buy our politicians. Now, there are some people fighting back against this corporate machine throughout the country. One of them is Doug Hausladen from Connecticut. And he has proposed in his local area this bill that says, hey, you know what? We should do an amendment that would, quote, corporations should not be afforded the entirety of protections or rights of natural persons, such that expenditure of corporate money to influence the electoral process is a form of constitutionally protected speech. In other words, they're not human beings. They don't have the inalienable right to free speech. That's absurd. It's ridiculous. I love that he's fighting back in New Haven on this issue. Now, to give you a sense of how much money is in politics now, do you know that in 2008, super PACs spent $25 million here, okay? Now, that seems like a lot, right? But in the 2010 election cycle, which was not even a presidential election, $65 million. So it's gone up dramatically. How about this election? Look at this. $74 million. And we're just getting started. We're not even halfway through the Republican primary. Look at that stunning number. In 2010, it was $65 million. We've already surpassed it. It's pouring in by the bucketfuls. And why do you think they're giving $74 million for their health? No, because they want to buy the politicians. And then what's one other effect it's had? Well, negative advertising has skyrocketed. And in fact, when I saw these next set of numbers, I was actually surprised. In 2008, do you know this big bar right here, 52.6 million, was actually positive advertising? Tiny little, I don't even know if you can see it, 3.4 million in negative advertising. So just in 2008, it wasn't that bad. In 2012, already negative ads have now past positive ads, 19.6 versus 18.5. So we've got a ton of money, and they're going towards negative advertising. Well, like I said, Doug Hausladen is an alderman from the Ward 7 city of New Haven, Connecticut, and he's fighting back, and he joins us on the program now. Doug, great to have you here. Talk to me about your proposal.
Thank you, Cenk. It's great to be here, and I just want to give a shout out to all the Wolfpack volunteers across the country, especially our Wolfpack right here in New Haven. Big thank you to them for all their help in creating this resolution. Our resolution is simple. It calls on our state legislature and it calls on our national legislature to introduce a constitutional amendment under Article 5, calling on the ban of corporate personhood and returning the elections to the people.
Okay, now, there's a couple things about your amendment that I love, obviously, because I'm obviously an enormous supporter of Wolfpack. We helped to start Wolfpack. You know, it's got its own executive director now, and it's got groups all over the country, including in Connecticut, where they're working with you on this issue. But a lot of people say, hey, wait a minute, constitutional convention, why can't we just do it through Congress, get 2/3 of Congress to vote for the amendment? Why do we have to do it through a convention?
Sure. I mean, you've heard it before, and you'll hear it again, that Congress has been bought and sold ages ago. And so a lot of people have been expressing fears of an Article 5 constitutional convention because they're afraid that the Constitution will be opened up. But that's just simply not the case. As you know, and as a lot of other people know, any amendment to the Constitution has to be ratified by 3/4 of our legislatures. And nothing extremely radical, whether repealing choice or doing something on the right, is going to be, or on the left, is going to be able to be passed by 13 states. It's just not going to happen. So I'm advocating, and a lot of other people, including Wolfpack, are advocating for a constitutional convention under Article 5.
So there's two parts to this amendment. One is corporations are not human beings. In reality, I think 98% of the American people agree with that, and 98% of our politicians don't, that's because they got bought by the corporations, very obvious. But there's a second part of it, too, which is the public financing of elections. So talk to me about why you think we need that, Doug.
Well, here in Connecticut and also in the city of New Haven, we have a public financing option for our elected officials. And we have two parts, the grant and then the matching funds in case your opponent is going to be outspending you with private money. Recent U.S. Supreme Court decisions has actually told us, the citizens of Connecticut and the citizens of New Haven, that the way that we do democracy here through a publicly financed program is unconstitutional. And I just do not believe that.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? So if Sheldon Adelson wants to put in $20 million to buy Newt Gingrich as a presidential candidate, just his own personal presidential candidate in his back pocket. Now, if you get $20 million, does anybody in this country really believe that Newt Gingrich won't do exactly what Sheldon Adelson tells him to do? But if you want to, as the citizens of New Haven or Connecticut, publicly finance elections so you can get clean elections, they say, no, you can't do it?
Exactly, Cenk. And the important thing is you hear a lot of people these days talking about the improvements that Citizens United has actually brought to our process. They state that, in 2008, we had 1 or 2 billionaires funding our elections, and now we have 5 or 6. Every candidate has their own billionaire. Well, what about the 200 million other Americans that aren't actually a part of the process? Our economic system might be a capitalist structure that rewards you for earning more than you can spend in a lifetime, but that's not how we should have our democratic system. It should be upholding our values of equality and freedom.
Doug, one more thing for you. In order to get an amendment passed, no matter what it is, like you said in the beginning, you need 3/4 of the states, right? So can we get conservatives on board for this fight back against, corporate power, unlimited money in politics, et cetera?
Well, I think what it's going to take is going to take volunteers from the Wolfpack Nation. It's going to take volunteers from the Occupy movement. It's going to take volunteers from the Tea Party. It's going to take everybody. This is a very popular concept across party lines, across every sect of the population. And what it really comes down to is whether or not people believe that we have the ability as people to dictate to our government how we want to be governed. And that's it. Right now, people don't believe it's possible. And I beg to differ. I think it's not too many years ago since we had another process like this, and you know it well, the 17th Amendment as well.
Absolutely. Doug Hausladen from New Haven, Connecticut. I love that you're leading the fight on this. Thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks.
Thank you. And all the Wolfpackers, come out to Wolfpack New Haven and help me out, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And listen, it can be done. And what he's referring to is wolf-pack.com. Check it out. See how you can join the fight against those corporate machines and retake our democracy. Now, when we come back, there has been an amazing viral movement to show the most wanted man in the world, this guy named Coney. Who is he? How do we fight back? How do we get him to stop abducting children? It's an amazing story. We'll do that as soon as we return.